I still refer to myself as a criminal.
Fantastic. Reputation is key.
My mom was basically the captain of the entire fraud industry.
Oh, is it double whammy?
And I'm the guy that continues to break the law from inside Secret Service offices for the next 10 months.
Well, we can get into that as well.
Design security, mitigate those things. Listen to what Sumsub has to say.
Hello, dear audience, and welcome to Series 3 of What the Fraud, a podcast by Sumsub where digital fraudsters meet their match. I'm Thomas Troniak, currently responsible for some of our very exciting partnerships here at Sumsub, the digital verification platform helping to verify users, businesses, and of course, transactions as well. This week, we have an incredibly special guest joining us to help us tackle a crucial topic, and that is how tools to commit fraud have become more accessible than ever before, who's at risk, and what we can do to stay protected. Fraud is no longer just a crime. It has become a global business with software at its heart. With fraud as a service, anyone can access cybercrime tools online. No technical skills required and a fraction of the price. And in our latest identity fraud report, we look at how little it takes to carry out fraud, with fraudsters spending just a few $100s to cause millions in damages. So to help us unpack this shift, I'm joined by Brett Johnson, one of the early pioneers in digital fraud. He's a real poacher turned gamekeeper, having set up one of the world's biggest hacking communities called Shadowcrew. After spending time in prison, he now works with businesses across the globe and uses his experience and insight to make this world a better place and keep them safe. Thank you so much for joining us today on our episode. We've had a lot of conversations around fraud with industry experts on this show specifically, but never someone who's seen it from the inside. So really excited to get our teeth sunk in today. So let's begin our discussion with a little insight into your journey into cyber fraud, your first brush with crime at quite a young age. Could you tell us how you first got involved in the world of fraud, Brett?
Sure. So I come from Eastern Kentucky. Eastern Kentucky is one of these parts of the United States, like the Panhandle, Florida, parts of Louisiana, that if you're not fortunate enough to have a job, you may be involved in some sort of scam, hustle, fraud, whatever you want to call it. My mom was basically the captain of the entire fraud industry. This is a woman, no crime too big or too small. This is a woman who at one point, she steals a 108,000-pound Caterpillar D9 bulldozer, trams it down the street. At another point, she takes a slip and fall in a convenience store, tries to sue the owner. That's my mom. My dad was a good guy. My dad's problem is he didn't have much of a backbone. So if my mom wanted to commit a crime, he would co-sign on to it. If she wanted to abuse someone, he wouldn't step in the way. And she's still alive. She is a very abusive person. And I'm not talking about just physical. Her heart was in the emotional, the verbal, the mental of everything. My mom finally leaves my dad. I was 10. My sister Denise was 9. We moved back to Eastern Kentucky. We had been living in Florida, moved back to Kentucky. And my mom used to leave me and my sister home for days at a time. She'd go out and party or whatever. And the thing is I get the worst parts of my mom and my dad. My mom, I get that criminal mindset. My dad, I get that fear of the people that I love leaving. So mom had been gone for a few days. We didn't have any food. Denise walks in one day. She's got this pack of pork chops in her hand. I'm like, where'd you get that? She's like, I stole it. And I'm like, show me how you did that. So she takes me over, shows me how she's stealing food. I'm like, hey, that's the best idea ever. Let's do that. So we start stealing food. Across the way, there's this shop called Kmart, kind of a department store. And it becomes this perverted form of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Books, games, jewelry, music, toys, you name it. We started stealing it. Mom comes home, sees all the stolen loot, asks where it came from. I stand up at 10 years old. We found it? She's like, no, you didn't find that. My sister Denise, 9 years old. The child doesn't lie at all. She stands up. She's half proud. She's half pissed off. We stole it. My mom looks at my sister. Show me how you did that. And she joins us, which is kind of a friendly euphemism for she ran me and my sister as little shoplifters. She not only does that, but she calls her mom as well to join us. And we used to take these road trips just shoplifting things. That's where my life of crime begins. And I want your listeners to understand that I'm not trying to say that my childhood resulted in my choices as an adult. That's not true. When you're a child, you're going to do what the adults in your circle are doing. When I became an adult, I had the choice, the opportunity to choose to do the right damn thing. And I didn't. I continued to go on. My sister had the exact same upbringing. Other than that one shoplifting experience, she doesn't break the law anymore. She goes off to be a good teacher, a great parent, just a good citizen overall. Now, she's got anger issues, but she's a good person. Me, I'm the kid that kept on going. And as I kept on going, I started to understand that it wasn't just my mom, it was every member on that side of the family that was engaged in some sort of crime. So I grew up knowing how to do shoplifting and knowing how to do insurance fraud. So faking accidents, faking stolen cars, burning homes for cash, charity fraud, stimulus type fraud, if you have like disaster relief fraud, illegally strip mining coal, how to grow marijuana. I mean, I had a background in all of that until I branched off on my own. Mid to late 90s, I faked a car accident, got the money to get married, moved from Hazard, Kentucky to Lexington, Kentucky to go to university.
Yeah. Brett, how did you get interested in technology as a tool to commit fraud? And why is it so attractive to fraudsters, whether or not they're individuals or, let's say, criminal organizations?
Where my real life of internet fraud begins, I was in Lexington, Kentucky. I was doing these little street scams, not doing really well. Got caught running a fake charity, served 3 months in a jail, got out, and found eBay. And I really liked eBay. I didn't know how to make money on eBay, though. So fortunately, back then, Bill O'Reilly, that Fox News TV host, he used to host this tabloid news show called Inside Edition. And they were profiling Beanie Babies that night. And the one they were profiling, they were these high-dollar collectibles, little stuffed animals. The one they were profiling that night was called Peanut, the Royal Blue Elephant, selling for $1,500 on eBay. So I'm sitting there watching the show, and I'm thinking to myself, well, shit, Brett, you've got to find a Peanut. So I skipped class the next day, went around to all the little shops looking for Peanut, took numbnuts here 3 hours to figure out, well, he's not in a shop. He's on eBay for $1,500. So what I did is they didn't have the Peanut, but they had these little gray Beanie Baby elephants for $8. So buy one of those for $8, stop by the grocery store on the way home, pick up a pack of blue dye, go home, try to dye the little guy. Turns out they're made out of polyester. They don't hold dye very well. You get them out of the bath, they look like they've got the mange. But I ripped a lady off of $1,500. I found a picture of a real one online. I posted it. She thought I had the real thing. She wins the bid. As soon as she wins the bid, social engineering kicks in. So you think about online crime. In order for me to defraud you, I have to get you to trust me. So trust online works through a combination of technology, tools, social engineering. Technology, that's our cell phone, our laptops, desktops. It's the websites we visit, the hardware, software that we use. We inherently trust those things, but we don't really understand them. Criminals use a variety of tools to manipulate that technology. They'll use stolen identity. To a criminal, that's a tool. They'll use SOX 5 proxies so that you don't know where the box is located. I don't want to be on the defense of the conversation. I want her on the defense. So I sent her a message. Hey, lady, you win the bid. Congratulations. By the way, you and me, we've never done any business before. I don't even know if I can trust you. What I need you to do is send me a couple of money orders for $1,500. They're issued by the government. They protect you. They protect me. I get those. I'll send you your animal. She believes that. She sends me the money orders, cash them out. I send her this creature in the mail, get this phone call from her. I didn't order this. My response was, lady, you ordered a blue elephant. I sent you a blue ish elephant. And right there is really the first lesson that most criminals learn online. And that lesson is if you delay a victim long enough, you just keep putting them off, a lot of them, they get exasperated. They throw their hands in the air, they walk away, and you don't hear from them again. And very few of them ever complain to law enforcement. So that's my life of crime at the start of crime. And that's the first fraud that I committed online as well.
Super interesting, Brett. And of course, we touched on sort of nurture versus nature there, sort of moving forwards and what you grew up with and how that shaped you. But of course, we're sitting here now. You're not currently in jail, but I would love to also talk about...
I like that. You're not currently in jail.
Well, we can get into that as well. But from the perspective of obviously, look, I mean, you've gone from everything from shoplifting to forging checks. It's just really interesting how you sort of got interested in the technology and learned how to use that for your own advantage, right? As a fraudster would at the time. So let's move on to Shadowcrew, Brett. And for listeners who may not have heard of it, this was one of the first cybercrime forums where fraudsters and cybercriminals alike shared tips and tools online, which you helped set up. So tell us a bit about Shadowcrew. What kinds of people were its members and what was it set up to do?
So understand that if cybercrime were a country today, it would have the third largest economy on the planet. So you'd have China, you'd have the United States, then you'd have cybercrime. So things have grown substantially over the years. There's a reason that it's grown that way. And you have to kind of understand what I call the three necessities of successfully committing online crime. Those three necessities are you have to gather the data. So that's the stolen PII. It's the logins. It's any tool that you may need to then go on and do the second necessity, actually committing whatever crime you intend to commit. And then finally, you have to be able to cash that crime out. So gather data, commit crime, cash it out. All three of those necessities have to work in conjunction. If they don't, the crime fails. Now, the problem with that is that a single criminal cannot do all three things. He can do one, sometimes two, but not all three. And the reasons for that is, number one, there's a skill gap. That specific criminal simply doesn't know how to do one of those things, like man-in-the-middle attacks, launch a phishing campaign, what have you. The other reason is a problem with geographic location. That criminal is simply in a geographic area where they cannot fulfill one of those three necessities. So there are three websites that are really the genesis or the foundation of modern cybercrime as we know it today. And those three websites are Counterfeit Library, Shadowcrew, and then Carter Planet. I ran Counterfeit Library and Shadowcrew. It starts out with Counterfeit Library. Counterfeit Library transitions to Shadowcrew. At about the same time that's happening, a Ukrainian national by the name of Dmitry Golubov, he sees the success that we're having in the United States. He's a spammer getting all these credit card details, and he thinks to himself, I wonder if people would buy stolen credit card details. And it turns out they will. So he picks up the phone, he calls his buddies, they call their buddies. They actually end up having a physical conference in Odessa. 150 of these Ukrainian criminals show up and they launch the idea of Carter Planet, which is the genesis of all modern credit card theft as we know it today. But the one that's most important for cybercrime is Shadowcrew because of that trust mechanism. So if you think about it, you have to network with criminals who are good in those areas where you are not. In order to do that, you have to be able to trust that criminal, to not rip you off, to not be law enforcement, to know what they're talking about. So how do you do that in an online environment where you don't know each other's name, you've never met each other? How do you establish trust like that? And the answer is you come up with a large communication channel, like a forum type structure where individuals from different time zones can reference conversations days, weeks, months old, take part in those conversations, learn from those conversations. Your screen name becomes your brand. People know just by looking at that name, the history of that individual, the skill level of that individual, if you can network with that individual. We had vouching systems in place, review systems in place, escrow systems in place, all with the singular purpose of establishing trust with one criminal and another that would allow them to work together and profit together. That's the primary or the most notorious accomplishment of Shadowcrew. Shadowcrew was the first marketplace of its type of criminal goods and services. And when I say that, I mean financial criminal goods and services and identity criminal goods and services. We did not deal, the rules that I had in place for that website, no child predator trap stuff, no drugs, no counterfeit currency. Toward the end days, we did deal in drugs. We also dealt in counterfeit currency. We never dealt in any of the child stuff whatsoever. But Shadowcrew goes on to make the front cover of Forbes, August of 2004. October of 2004, the United States Secret Service, they arrested 33 people, 6 countries, 6 hours. I'm the only guy publicly mentioned as getting away. They picked me up 4 months later. The Secret Service, they give me a job, and I'm the guy that continues to break the law from inside Secret Service offices for the next 10 months. Until they find out about it, I take off on a cross-country crime spree, steal $600,000 in the space of 4 months, wake up one morning on the United States Most Wanted list, go to Disney World, get arrested, sent to prison, escape from prison, get arrested again, and serve out my time.
Great. So, what a story. Do you think you played a pivotal role in the democratization of fraud as a service through your time at all of these enterprises, making it more accessible to users and, of course, to the general public if they wanted to become fraudsters? I mean, is it just for complete beginners who are jumping on here, or was it dominated by experienced fraudsters, and is it still the same as we look forward?
Excellent question. When we started Shadowcrew, and I want you to understand that I ran it, but think of that type of environment, these cybercrime communities. Don't think of it as a corporation. Think of it more as a co-op where individuals cycle in and out. So while I was, kind of the figurehead of things, it was more than just me that was responsible for that foundation of cybercrime that we have today. One of the things that we were very adamant about at the beginning was freely sharing and exchanging information. We understood at a very base level that if you educate more people or everyone across the board, it not only makes you more educated, but it makes you more profitable at the end of the day. And that really is kind of the foundation of this democratization of fraud, as you call it. Back then, as a criminal, we had to understand every single dynamic of the crime or the fraud that we were committing. We had to understand the operational security of that potential victim, of the individual or the organization that we were trying to attack. We had to understand our own operational security so as to not be identified by law enforcement. We had to know how to run drop addresses, how to launder money, how to create fake driver's licenses. We had to understand everything across the board. That doesn't work like that anymore. Today, everything is off-the-shelf products and services. A beginner today, they can begin their life of cybercrime or their aspiring career as a criminal, and they can almost immediately start profiting because everything is off the shelf. All the products, all the services. If you don't know how to commit a crime, you can buy a tutorial. That runs anywhere from $10 US on up. If you don't want to go buy a tutorial, you can take live instruction classes a master fraudster will take you by the virtual hand and will walk you through how to commit one specific type of fraud. And it comes with a guarantee. If you're not profitable by the end of my class, I will refund you your money. And they mean that because, again, today, cybercrime, if it were a country, would have the third largest economy on the planet. And because of that, customer service matters. So you have to make sure that your customers are happy. So this is the way things have grown over time. It starts with Shadowcrew. It absolutely does. It starts with that idea of things being open source, open environment, sharing, exchanging information, collaborating all together. As things advance, as that marketplace comes up, you have to understand that the marketplace, its primary function is to fulfill that first necessity of cybercrime, that gathering the data. That's a huge thing. Most criminals, they won't go out and fish their own data. They won't go out and steal their own credit card numbers. Instead, they'll let the marketplace fulfill that need. So that's really where this marketplace idea begins right there. Someone is able to supply that necessity for you. From there, it grows and burgeons out into drug trafficking and things like that. As things evolve, as more people come into the environment, it really becomes like the gold rush of the 1890s in California. Instead of the people who are out there actually digging for gold and mining, the people who are making money are the people who are supplying the mining tools. So the marketplaces are the ones that are making the money. The people who are selling on the marketplaces are the ones who make a lot of money. That's really the way things are going today and the way things have done. Today, as a criminal, you don't have to understand anything at all to be successful in committing crime. And I don't really care if that's a low-level crime like refunding fraud or credit card theft, or the high-level stuff like man-in-the-middle, stealing session tokens, cookie injection attacks, things like that. All of that can be found on the marketplaces themselves.
Definitely. And with service provision now, as you've mentioned as well, becoming more easily accessible, and also the anonymity around it is quite attractive. At the end of the day, it's scalable as well. Utilizing AI and access to these with minimal investment, you can wreak havoc, right? And of course, the quick action on everything that you do there as a criminal can be quite attractive. So from our perspective, each year at Sumsub, in fact, we put out our identity fraud report, right? It's become a trusted source for our fraud, let's say, community, and of course, teaching citations from the UN, Statista, CNBC, and other major outlets as well. In 2024, we looked into what it costs to get tools now to commit digital fraud, in fact, Brett, as well. Phishing kit can cost as low as $20. Space on a server can be bought for $100 a month, right? And from your perspective, Brett, how much damage can someone actually do with that kind of setup? Are we really talking about causing thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions in losses with just a $20 or $100 investment?
So before I answer that, let me say you guys do a fantastic job. You truly do. I mean, you're great in the environment. You do a lot of good every single day. You've got nothing but my respect. How much damage can you do? So talking about those cookie injection attacks, I was working for a bot mitigation company a couple of years ago. And while I was working for them is when we saw this fraud as a service or democratization of fraud, where the cookie injection attacks were being sold. And it was automated for you. The only thing you had to do, well, you had to pay for their monthly service, which was anywhere from $50 up to $400 a month, depending on how long you needed it. Then you had to buy server access, which was, under $100. That was really it. Everything else was done for you, and they had YouTube videos that would actually walk you through how to set up every single thing that you needed to set up. The idea being that the only thing you needed to do as an attacker was get that potential victim to click on the link that you sent them. If they clicked on the link, it was done. All right. You sat in the middle, it captured the session token to the actual login. And at that point, you could go in, you didn't have to have the person's credentials. It bypassed multi-factor authentication, and you were in whatever environment that was. We saw that. Now, in the United States, you've got 9 major banks. We saw that attack successfully being committed against 8 of the 9 major banks. And the problem is that those institutions, those financial institutions, they were simply relying on the session token to establish trust in that environment. All right. So remember, I said it all boils down to trust. In order for me to defraud you, I have to get you to trust me. That's either as an individual or an organization. So what does it take to get you to trust me? Is it stolen identities? Is it login credentials? Is it a session token? What does it take to get you to trust me? Those financial institutions, they were simply relying on the session token. And because of that, criminals were able to go in, access the account, bypass multi-factor authentication, and then make money transfers out of the account without question, and successfully do that. How much money are you talking about? Well, you're talking about, for a couple of $100 or oftentimes far less than that, you're talking the ability to profit thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, depending on the website or what account you're trying to take over at that point.
Yeah. Given how cheap these solutions are as well, are there some which are inherently more, let's say, popular just because they're more profitable? And on the basis there, I mean, are these sustainable as cheap tools if they're sort of hammered towards the same organizations who can fix, let's say, barriers which basically prevent these tools from actually making any impact?
Excellent question. So when I turned my life around and came over to the good guy side, one of the first questions that I asked, and it was a very naive question, but it's not. But it is. And the question is, hey, we bad guys, we're very good about sharing and exchanging information. Why aren't you guys doing that? And I didn't understand at that point, well, there's privacy concerns, there's regulations. More importantly, there's competitive edges. And the bad guys, I still refer to myself as a criminal. We understand that, a lot of companies, if I'm hitting a company in a vertical, and I'm eating that company alive, the chances of that company sharing that information with any of their competitors in that same vertical is almost zero. So what tends to happen is as that specific company that I'm targeting starts to mitigate those attacks, I know that the other companies that are in that same vertical, they're probably going to have very similar security. So I can probably just bounce over to one of those and be just as successful using the exact same technique that I've been using against company A. So that's a lot of the problem of being successful in these things. The question of, does the dollar amount matter to the criminal as far as launching these attacks? It absolutely does. As a criminal, I am looking for the easiest access or the most return that I can get on my criminal access. Okay. And I'm not looking to spend a lot of money. And it really boils down to, why am I attacking you? What's the motivation for that? There tends to be three motivations for online attacks. It's status. I'm trying to impress my criminal peers. It's cash. I'm trying to profit. Or it's ideology. You have pissed me off. So if you understand why you're being attacked, the motivation for that, you start to understand the persistence of that attack. So a cash-based attack, that's the lowest hanging fruit attack. I'm looking for the largest return on my criminal investment. So I'm not looking to put a lot of money in. I'm looking for the easiest security that I can find. If someone just has a base level of security, probably I'm going to find an easier target at that point, all right? Compared to status, I'm trying to find something that impresses my criminal peers. I'm not trying to look for the easiest security. Ideology, it doesn't matter how much security you've got in place. I'm looking to damage you or your company specifically. So that will determine the persistence of the attack. And because of that, it also kind of determines how much money, time, and effort that specific attacker, that criminal, is willing to put into compromising that target.
That's super interesting. On the basis, if you had to look at it as, let's say, proportionate, would you say it's disproportionate that individuals are focused more on, let's say, the cash quick wins, and these criminal organizations are more focused on, let's say, larger cash grabs, or the ideological sort of area of expertise where they're trying to target organizations to sort of bring them down, find weak points so they can share it with the community, that sort of thing?
What's interesting is certainly the most damaging is ideological, because those attacks don't tend to go away. Ideology is certainly ramping up in today's world. I mean, if you're not aware of that, someone has not been paying attention to the news lately. It's not so much looking for the high payouts. It's looking to be able to scale those types of crimes. Okay?
Yeah.
So in the United States, during COVID, we had a lot of stimulus fraud. So the biggest payout in the United States was called PPP, which was a $2 million loan from the government that the government forgave at the end of the day. Most experienced criminals did not go toward that, though. Instead, they veered toward unemployment fraud, which was a much lower payout, but you were able to scale that beautifully at the end of the day. So instead of doing one PPP loan a month and maybe getting the money or maybe not, usually not, you veered toward unemployment where they would pay you $10,000 a week. And then you were able to scale that up where you're opening, 20 accounts a week and making potentially a lot more money at the end of the day. If you can get that one-time hit for that large payday, that's what you veer for. But if you're looking at a crime that is lower dollar but scales much more easily and is potentially much more successful at the end of the day, that's what you tend to hit.
So that's an interesting one, Brett. At Sumsub, we're also looking at the growing trend of hybrid attacks. I mean, these are where fraudsters basically use multiple methods, such as stolen libraries of passwords and also brute force in tandem to make or conduct attacks on security systems. So what are the most dangerous hybrid attacks right now, in your opinion? And what makes them so effective?
Everything to me looks hybrid, to be honest with you. And the reason I say that is you look at what creates that threat landscape that's out there, and what creates it is typically, you've got 90% of all attacks use known exploits. You've got 56% of companies are compromised by third-party access. 41% of all routers have the default password. And then you've got this other stat that says 87% of every breach begins with a phishing attack.
Interesting.
And the reason it does is that, why would I potentially spend years trying to brute force my way through something, through an industrial-proof firewall, for example, when I can just send an email to someone sitting behind that firewall, or pick up the phone, talk to someone that's working remotely, and convince them to give me remote access to the system. That saves me time, effort, and money.
So it could be a combination of, let's say, bot networks and social engineering and other methodologies, which would be the most effective, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You cannot dismiss, and this is one of the big things that when my life of internet crime began, there were pen testers out there, absolutely. But what was very interesting is a company would hire a pen tester, and they only wanted that testing looked at from the software side or from the network side. Don't involve humans. Yes, we understand they can be compromised, but we don't want those involved. And there's something really wrong with that, because as an attacker, I'm looking for the easiest thing that gives me that access. And a lot of the times that's going to be the human being. Period. It's going to be the human being. If I can go to say you're looking at a business email compromise, and I can go to LinkedIn and I can find someone who works in payroll, and then find a CEO of that same company, create a Unicode domain that looks very similar to that company's domain, then spearfish one of those two targets, gain access to their email, read their emails until I find, the specific relationship that I need to find there, block that out, use that Unicode domain to create a new email, come in there, and then divert funds all of a sudden. That's typically the way business email compromise works. So you're looking at, that's a hybrid attack. It absolutely is. It's really, from an attack point of view or a crime point of view, it's whatever you need to do to get the job done. Can it sometimes be as simple as stealing a cookie and going in and not having to talk to someone? It absolutely can. Does it sometimes involve calling customer service and gaining access like that? Yes, it absolutely does. So you've got these things that are oftentimes chained together in order to defraud or victimize who you need to victimize at the end of the day.
So with fraud as a service making it easier than ever to exploit those weak spots, it's clear that no industry can tackle this alone. And that's exactly why the What the Fraud Summit is happening this November 19th and 20th in Singapore. We're bringing together leaders from fintech, crypto, tech, and compliance to connect the dots between fraud prevention, AI, security, regulation, and resilience as well. So no fluff, just real talk and tactics that actually work. Expect keynotes, roundtables, and hands-on workshops with some of the sharpest minds in the game to discuss how to deal with deepfakes, future-proofing your fraud stack, and staying ahead of the next wave of regulatory chaos as well. So there'll be over 50 speakers, over 500 attendees, and 40% of them at least will be C-level. So hit the link in the episode description or secure your spot at sumsub.com/WTF CF-Summit. So Brett, I would love to talk about what we can do as a business or individual to protect ourselves right now from this threat you're talking about. I mean, you're a security consultant now. When you're called to help businesses, right, wherever it may be in the world, Dubai, London, any other state in the US, of course, I mean, what's the biggest vulnerability you've seen over the last year, let's say 2024, moving into 2025? I mean, what changes are you seeing in the way that fraud takes place? Have companies just not kept up with it?
The problem, honestly, we've got 8,500 security companies. We've got a lot of media that paint online criminals as hackers, as computer geniuses able to break into anything. And the truth of the matter is, yeah, you've got some of those guys that can do that. The 98, 99%, we are not like that. We are just very good social engineers. What creates that threat landscape is what I talked about, those statistics I gave out.
Yeah.
The problem is not zero-day attacks, unknown vulnerabilities, or sophisticated attackers. The problem is the things we know about, that we've been told about, that we've not done anything about. That creates a lot of the issue that's out there. So, talking about how do you mitigate these attacks, first of all, are you scanning your environment? Are you aware of the vulnerabilities or the exploits that are in your system? You need to be, and not only be aware of them, but patching them, making sure you're plugging those holes that are out there. Because as an attacker, a lot of that's automated. We can just scan, find the vulnerability, see if it works, okay? So that's a lot of it. Are you aware of your place in the cybercrime spectrum? Because you have one. The way that I will victimize you absolutely depends on who you are and what you do as an individual or as an organization. Individual, are you CEO or payroll, or do you work in food service? I'll still get you, but the way that the attack will, or what I'm looking for, will differ. CEO or payroll, business email compromise, tax statement, something like that, or ransomware. Food service may be student loan fraud, credit cards opening, account takeover, something like that. So understand your place in the cybercrime spectrum, design security around that. Are you training for compliance and effectiveness? Because there's a difference between the two. Compliance absolutely matters, but are you also training the way an attack will happen? I worked with a Fortune 50 company. While I worked with them, we did a phishing simulation campaign, sent out an email saying, hey, we've added 2 more days to the calendar for vacations. We didn't say what the days were. Instead, we had a little link or a little PDF file at the bottom marked calendar. And the question was how many people will click on that? And the answer was everyone clicked on that. So this company, because the people who clicked on it, they were embarrassed, they were outraged, they got angry, and they complained. Because of that, this Fortune 50 company sent out an email saying, hey, we apologize. We will never do that again.
Oh, is it double whammy?
Well, that's the exact wrong thing. Yeah, it's the wrong thing to do because that's how I'm going to attack you.
Yeah.
So train for compliance, train for effectiveness, pay attention to your own vulnerabilities, know what it takes for someone like I used to be to defraud you. What does it take to gain your trust, either as an individual or as an organization? If you can figure those things out, then you start to understand what you need to do to mitigate those attacks. And what are we looking for as attackers? Information, access, data, cash. We're attacking because of status, cash, ideology. There's only 7 really. If you think about it, there's only really 7 different types of attackers online. You've got criminals like I used to be. You've got nation states, terrorists, hacktivists, insiders. You've got hackers for hire, and script kiddies. That's the 7. So you figure out who's attacking you, why they're attacking you, what they're looking for, what does it take to gain your trust, design security, mitigate those things. Listen to what Sumsub has to say.
Well, from that side, I mean, it's spotting the vulnerabilities as a fraudster, right? You're spotting things, you communicate them within your community or within your criminal organization, right? And then you go target them. But with the rapid growth of artificial intelligence tools, it's obviously changing the fraud landscape right now. I mean, what's the outlook like for fraud defense, and how is the growth of AI changing what we should focus on as a business?
I just got back from Edmonton, Canada, and I was on a panel with the police chief from Edmonton, fantastic guy, and he made a very good comment, and it's true. So AI is absolutely already benefiting the bad guys. It's benefiting the good guys too. But to understand the damage that AI does, when a criminal is using it, you have to understand that for those models to be trained on the good guy side, how are they being trained? Well, they're being trained by what the bad guys are doing, is how they're being trained. So that makes it a reactive solution or a reactive mitigation. So you're always playing that catch up all of a sudden, and it's going to continue to get worse. You take deepfakes, for example. We're going to get to the point, we're already at the point where it's very difficult to identify a deepfake. So what happens when AI is good enough that, hey, these deepfakes are in real time? So you've got real-time audio, you've got real-time video put together. So if you think about the motivations for attack, status, cache, ideology, cache-based attacks with deepfakes, business email compromise is going to, that's going to be bad. Account takeovers, that's going to be bad. If you're looking to release press statements that say, you have a deepfake of a CEO saying, our company, it's in the crapper today. And then you're shorting the stock at that point. So you've got all these issues. On the ideological side of deepfakes, you've got the, in the United States, for some reason, a lot of law enforcement officers, they like to shoot unarmed black men. And cities explode at that point. So what happens when you've got a deep fake of some sort of law enforcement mishap, but some sort of law enforcement thing that happens of maybe an assailant that is shot or gunned down in the street, and the video shows that he's unarmed, city explodes, all this damage is done. 3 days later, it comes out, well, no, it was a deep fake. So you've got the potential of AI assisting these types of crimes. And honestly, I talk a big game a lot of the times, but honestly, what we're looking at is potentially getting to the point where we are no longer able to trust what we see or hear in our environments. And when that happens, I honestly don't know what to do about that. It's a very scary proposition. And you talk about the speed of this thing. AI, it absolutely helps in phishing attacks. It helps to layer trust in cryptocurrency scams, in relationship frauds, sextortion schemes, account takeovers. I mean, I don't think, we've had a lot of rhetoric over the past couple of years about how bad AI is, with criminals using it. A lot of that was just a precursor to what we're actually going to see. A lot of that was a security company just saying this stuff, and it wasn't happening yet. We're starting to see that happen now, and it's far worse than what that initial rhetoric was.
100%. And the growth is, it's very scary because everything seems to be happening at once. Over 2024 and what we're seeing this year, and it being so retrospective means that regulators and policymakers are having a hard time catching up and making sure that some of these systems are implemented. And of course, it's a continuous game of cat and mouse, as you mentioned, us trying to fight the fraudsters and doing it not proactively, but reactively. So I don't want to end, of course, on a negative note. I mean, it's all super scary.
Let's not end with gloom and doom, huh?
Gloom and doom. I mean, from your perspective, Brett, having been on both sides of the digital fraud landscape, as both as a cybercriminal, but also now someone that helps real businesses and real people actually solve these issues, what advice would you give to us to help keep ourselves safe, keep our businesses safe, whether that's at work or just in our daily lives, right? Because anyone could be at any time a victim.
Absolutely, absolutely. As a business, and I'm a big advocate of going to conferences. And the reason I say that is it allows people to network together, share and exchange information. A lot of the reason the bad guys win every day is they're better at collaborating, sharing and exchanging information. So we need to get to that level. That's a big one. The other big one for me is that situational awareness. Like I said at the beginning of our talk, we inherently trust these technologies. For some reason, when we're in the physical world, our situational awareness is pretty high. We know when things are not feeling right. The hackles on our neck stands up, things like that. That doesn't translate very well to an online environment. But we need to get to that point where our situational awareness, whether we're a customer or a client going into a company, or whether we're running the company ourselves,
Right.
or an employee of the company, we need to have that situational awareness that, hey, most of the time things are fine, but there are predators in this environment. There are people out there that are looking to victimize me or my company. I think just that, if you've got that right there will lead to making sure this threat landscape is scanned, making sure you're doing proper training, making sure you're looking at what it takes to trust you in that environment. I think it begins with that situational awareness, and then it goes from there.
100%. At the end of the day as well, we're not just talking about operational strain or, let's say, financial, fiscal damages and then reputational losses. We're also talking about day-to-day lives, which can be ruined, right?
Right.
But before we end today, Brett, we want to get to know you a little bit more on a personal level. I mean, we dove into some parts today, but I would love to ask you our standard 5 quickfire questions. I might even add a 6th one. Brett, if you don't mind, let's get started. Quickfire questions. So when choosing a digital wallet, do you go for more features or do you go for better security?
Better security.
Excellent. What's one thing about fraud that still surprises you, even after all of your experience in and out?
That sharing of information. It's outstanding the way it works.
Interesting. We highlighted this earlier, but have you ever been a victim of fraud outside of your times as a cybercriminal?
A couple of years ago, I was hit 4 times in 1 year.
4 times?
So it started, I walked out of the Oklahoma City FBI field office, went to get gas in a rental car. My credit card was shut down because someone had stolen the information and had tried to buy an iPhone in Nebraska. And then I got hit 3 more times on different cards the rest of the year.
Unlucky streak, Brett.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
But I view it as karma. I figured I deserved that.
Oh, wow. You're making amends. I mean, what would you say is one habit that you rely on today to stay safe online? You mentioned situational awareness, but it's very difficult in the digital space for sure.
You know, with me, I use a combination of password managers and authenticators and passkeys when they're available. That's the big one for me. And go into trusted websites. I mean, I try not to go any place that's not trusted.
Fantastic. Reputation is key. And if you could have any other career than the one you're currently in or the one that you had previously, Brett, what would it be?
Actor.
Actor?
Yeah.
Excellent. So one extra just for you. Do you still sometimes miss the good old hacking days?
You know, I don't miss it because of those, the fear of the knock on the door, the stress and anxiety when you'd be driving down the road and a police car pull behind you. I don't miss it. I've still got a lot of the temptations. I've still got the criminal mindset, but I don't miss that life whatsoever.
But Brett, you're putting that criminal mindset to good use now, of course, teaching our audience and also businesses and people to stay safe themselves, both online and in person. And I think that's a good cause.
Thank you. I appreciate it, truly.
Brett, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. It's been a great episode and I've enjoyed thoroughly getting to know you and, of course, your story, but, of course, answering a lot of questions for our audience as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining us on this episode of What the Fraud by Sumsub. On the next episode, we're going to take a look at fintech fraud. We'll take a deep dive into the new trends and tactics and how the sector is fighting back. So calling all listeners, we need your support. So please hit that follow button on your favorite podcast platform. And if the episode has left you feeling empowered, drop a review. It helps other individuals out there trying to dodge the digital tricksters. So let's cut the small talk and get down to business. Follow, comment, review. You know the drill. And of course, if you want to hear more about what we do at Sumsub and how your business can actually benefit from our verification services, definitely check out our website at www.sumsub.com. and of course, subscribe to our socials. This has been a Listen production. The producer is Adrian Bradley and the executive producer is Nick Minter. The producer for Sumsub is Mila Faravina. Stay safe and see you on the next one.